In 1978, legendary actor Charlie Chaplin's body was stolen from his grave and held for ransom. But his widow refused to pay the ransom demands of 400,000 euros because she said Charlie would have thought it to be ridiculous. His body was found in a cornfield 2 weeks later and the two suspects were arrested. The Oxford English Dictionary was mostly written by William Chester Minor, a schizophrenic murderer. Frank Goldsmith was a Titanic survivor who later lived near Tiger Stadium in Detroit. But he never took his children to a ball game because the roar of the crowd reminded him of the screams of people dying in the freezing waters. There are over 70 documented cases of transplant patients experiencing the same thoughts and feelings as their donors did in life. People have reported everything from craving their donors' favorite foods to inheriting their talents. It has posed the theory that the cells in our bodies can store memories. In 2006, 5-year-old Robert Turner called 911 after his mother collapsed in her bedroom. But the operator hung up after asking him to put an adult on the phone and assuming it was a prank. 3 hours later, he called 911 again, and a different operator told him to stop prank calling. This time, police were sent to the home to deal with him, where they found that the mother of 10 had died from a heart attack. The lowest form of accommodation in Victorian England was a place where you could dangle over a rope overnight for the price of a penny. Apparently, it was safer than sleeping on the ground and dealing with rats. In 1980, when a group of loggers were cutting off the top of a chestnut oak tree, they noticed the mummified remains of a hunting dog. Experts believe that it chased its prey up the tree in the 1960s only to get stuck and eventually die. He was posthumously named Stucky. After Wildlife Wonderland in Melbourne, Australia went abandoned in 2012, a dead great white shark was left to decompose in a tank for more than 5 years. This is a high-resolution image of stitches in the eye after a corneal transplant. Due to their unique spinal structure, elephants are not meant to carry heavy loads on their backs. They often suffer serious spinal injuries as a result of carrying tourists around for several hours each day. This is a leaked screenshot from CNN's supposed doomsday tape. The footage is meant to be broadcasted by the last surviving employee in case all of humanity is about to die. It features a marching band playing the song Nearer My God to Thee, the same song that onboard musicians played as the Titanic sank. If you were to swim near a pod of narwhals and happen to hear one whistle, it might be the last thing that you ever heard. The sounds that narwhals make are so loud that they're said to be deafening to humans. If a female fox dies, their mate will stay single forever. But if a male fox dies, his widow will search for a new mate immediately. The vision of the pronghorn antelope is comparable to a human wearing 10 times magnifying binoculars. In other words, on a clear night they can see the rings of Saturn. Cockroaches find humans so disgusting that if they touch you, they will run away and clean themselves immediately. Photographer Herbert van der Beek captured this extremely rare moment of a jaguar diving underwater to catch its prey. Jaguars are very good swimmers and can hold their breath for up to 2 minutes underwater. Sharks have survived 4 out of the 5 mass extinction events and have been around for more than 400 million years. This means they're older than Mount Everest, older than dinosaurs, older than trees, and even older than your mom. These are what the muscles look like on a fully grown male Siberian tiger. For decades, scientists didn't know what created various massive cave systems throughout South America. In 2010, they learned that the caves were actually tunnels dug out by ancient giant ground sloths. This is a snapping turtle buried in mud just after emerging from hibernation. This is where the Native American legend of the Earth being brought into existence and carried on the shell of a turtle originated from. In 2018, Russian scientists collected and analyzed 300 prehistoric worms from Arctic permafrost. After thawing, 2 of the worms began to move and eat. Both of the worms are estimated to be well over 30,000 years old. 18 months after colon surgery, an Australian woman returned to the hospital when she was experiencing severe stomach pain. Apparently, the surgeons had accidentally left their scissors inside her abdomen. Here's a photograph of the last known Tasmanian tiger Benjamin at the Hobart Zoo in 1936. The species officially went extinct when Benjamin was locked outside of his sleeping quarters on a cold Tasmanian night and promptly froze to death. This is a 1954 photo of 2 4-year-old Australian boys playing in a sandbox full of asbestos. This was during a time when very little was known about the devastating effects of asbestos on humans, as both boys eventually died from mesothelioma before the age of 40. In France, you can legally marry a dead person as long as you can prove that they planned on marrying you before they died. These were the clothing and acts of Rome's most famous executioner, Mastro Tita. He carried out a total of 516 executions over his 68-year career. Snowflake was an albino gorilla who used to live at Barcelona Zoo in Spain. Sadly, he was euthanized in 2003 after being diagnosed with a rare form of skin cancer, likely as a result of his condition. Before his death, he was the world's only known albino gorilla. This extremely rare blonde seal was recently found in the South Georgia Islands. A fisherman in Maine found this translucent lobster. Scientists say the odds of this happening are less than 1 in 100 million. Some animals can be born as bilateral gynandromorphs, meaning they're male on one side and female on the other. This insanely rare condition has been observed most commonly in butterflies, birds, and crustaceans. This octopus with 85 tentacles was found near Japan in 1957. This is what happens when a genetic mutation in a starfish causes it to grow one less limb, resulting in it looking like a pillow. Ulnar dymelia, aka mirror hand, is an extremely rare developmental condition of the hand. It's characterized by the absence of the radius, duplication of the ulna, and symmetrical polydactyly, aka 7 or 8 fingers and no thumb. In 2009, actor Dean Winters suffered from a bacterial infection and died in the ambulance but was revived. After recovering, he developed gangrene and had multiple amputations and skin grafts. He is now better known for playing Mayhem in Allstate insurance commercials. In 2014, a scrap metal dealer from California bought a golden egg for $14,000 at a yard sale, hoping he could flip it for a quick profit. But after finding out that the metal was worth way less than he hoped for, he decided to take it to an antiques expert instead. It turned out to be an extremely rare Fabergé egg that once belonged to the Emperor of Russia, worth an estimated $33 million. In July of 2021, marine biologists spotted a real-life yellow sponge and pink sea star near a mountain in the Atlantic. Harry John Patch was the last surviving soldier from World War I and was briefly the oldest man in all of Europe. He died at the age of 111 years, 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day. Park Ranger Roy Sullivan holds a record that will hopefully never be broken. He was struck by lightning not once, not twice, but 7 times. For 300 years, the lonely tree of Tenere was the only tree within a 100-mile radius in the Sahara Desert. That was until it was accidentally knocked down in 1973 by a drunk driver. In 2003, a woman from Texas hit a homeless man with her car and his body became lodged in her windshield. She drove home with him still stuck in her car and repeatedly apologized to the man when he was in her garage. But she never called for help, and the man died 2 days later, still in the woman's car, while she received 50 years in prison. A woman snorkeling near Australia noticed this fish was wearing a gold wedding ring that must have looped around its neck when someone dropped it. She said she tried her best to catch the fish, but it swam away too quickly. A woman from Michigan gave birth on 8808, 9909, and 101010. The odds of this happening to 3 kids were 50 million to 1. Rain Selak narrowly survived a fatal plane crash, train crash, 2 car explosions, and being hit by a bus. He then went on to win a $1 million jackpot in the lottery. The first person to die during the construction of the Hoover Dam was J.G. Tierney on December 20th, 1922. On the same exact date, 14 years later, the last person died. It was J.G. Tierney's son, Patrick. A group of researchers came across this massive claw while digging down a cave in New Zealand. Later on, they confirmed that it was the 3,300-year-old foot of a moa bird, a 12-foot-tall ostrich-like bird that went extinct around 700 years ago. This 2,500-year-old artifact was found in Istanbul, and many believe it depicts a modern-day space capsule. If you had to guess how long ago this elephant died, what would you say? If your answer was 42,000 years, you'd be correct. Lyuba is an incredibly preserved woolly mammoth calf that was found in Siberian permafrost. With their internal organs and skin still intact, Lyuba is by far the best preserved woolly mammoth mummy ever found. This iron helmet dating back to the 10th century was found in Norway in 1943. It's the only complete Viking helmet ever found, and despite popular belief, there was never any proof that Vikings wore horns on their helmets. On July 4th, 1826, President John Adams' last words before dying were, "Thomas Jefferson survives." Little did he know, President Jefferson had died just hours earlier that same day. Not to mention it was exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence was passed. These 2 bullets collided during the Battle of Gallipoli in 1916. David Hull was digging for gold in 2015 when he came across a rock that he was certain had gold inside. But after years of failing to crack the rock open, he finally decided to take it to an expert, and it ended up being something much more rare than gold. Turns out it was an iron meteorite estimated to be 4.6 billion years old. This woman adopted an elderly dog because it looked exactly like the dog she had as a child that her parents told her ran away. A microchip later confirmed that it was actually her old dog. Narnia the Two-Faced Cat recently gave birth to 2 kittens of each color. Tom Cruise divorced all 3 of his ex-wives when they turned 33, and each is 11 years younger than the last. In 1999, Richard Anthony Jones was convicted of a felony even though he had a strong alibi. He spent 17 years in prison until authorities found his doppelganger living in the same town with the same first name.